a friend to this show as well. And BBD Warrior, thank you for the super chat kicking things off. It's a great way to support what we do on this show. And along with, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to let you know when we're coming on. And what else am I trying to say here? The new shirts. We got our new store up. If you haven't checked it out yet already, it is facebook.com/spaced out radio. No, not spaced out radio. The SOR Vault. Sorry. The SOR Vault. That's where you want to go. We are live in 10 seconds. Hi, Walter. Vinny, good to have you back. Ibarata in Singapore. Thank you for coming on in. Here we go, everyone. 5 seconds. Let's kick off the new week. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Wells Gray Park here in British Columbia is 5,000 square miles of some of the most pristine and picturesque pieces of nature, but it also has its secrets. One of the top true crime authors here in North America is a great man named Alan R. Warren. He is back to discuss his latest book, Murder Times 6, the story of the Wells Gray Park murders. It all started back in 1982 when Al Bonar, manager of the Gorman Mills located in West Kelowna, placed a phone call to RCMP. He was reporting a long-term missing employee by the name of Bob Johnson. Bob has taken a sick day at all, let alone missed a day's work by just not showing up in 20 years. This is the story we are getting into and more with one of the top crime authors in North America. His website, alanrwarren.com. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Alan R. Warren, good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. You're pumping out a book like every couple of months, man. I have no idea how you do it.
It's not quite how it seems. You know, I've always got 5 or 6 files going, sometimes more. And as the information comes to me, I put it in. And when I'm finished, I'm finished. And so I sit down and write. Like the book you have now, The Murder Times 6, that was over 2 years of research and meeting people and traveling and doing all sorts of things. And when I sat down to write it, it was only about a 2-week process.
Really?
Yeah.
So when your fingers get moving, they are moving.
Yeah, once it's there, it's there. When I feel I've got everything I want, and then I just sit down and tell the story. And this one took just about 2 weeks to actually write out the manuscript from all the information. So that's just how I work. I don't know. It's a little weird, but it's how it goes.
Alan, you are, for a lot of people who may not know, you are also highly intuitive as well. You work in the paranormal field. How much intuition do you put into your books?
Well, sometimes more than others. I guess that's kind of an elusive answer. I guess it depends on how many people I meet that are involved in the case, because that's where it comes from. So some of the books like this one here, meeting everybody from the killer to a lot of the victims' families to the police involved to when there's that many people involved, there's quite a bit more of me into it.
Man, I mean, how do you not? Let me ask you the question this way: when you are writing a true crime book like this, like Murder Times 6, okay, being as intuitive and as accurate as you are, how much of this book or any book you have written are you reliving through the victims, through the person who committed the crimes, through the family? Because, I mean, you have to be hit huge on this.
Yeah, in this particular case, it was very difficult. It was one of the hardest ones I've ever done, and definitely took the most out of me. It affected me like nothing else ever has, and I think that was because there's so many people that I met that were involved, and yeah, so it was crazy. The hardest thing is getting over the depression. Because that's something you can't just turn off. Like when you get into a story and you start reliving some of it, it does take you down that dark road, and you can't just go, okay, I'm all better. It stays with you for a while.
How do you get over it? How do you cleanse yourself from those intuitive emotions? I mean, empathy is hard. It really is.
For me, it's my dogs. Like I get all the old rescues from the pound up here, and so I get dogs that are 5, 6, 7, and they're usually small to medium, anywhere from a Chihuahua to a Jack Russell, and they ground me. I walk with them, I spend a lot of time with them, I sleep with them. It's just sort of something that it brings me back to reality. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Why not? I mean, let's face it. Has a dog ever been upset when you came home? I know my dogs aren't.
No. And the thing is, what they do is they bring you back to now. They bring you back to the dogs are thinking today. When you walk in the room, they're excited, they're happy, and you spend time with them because they're living now. They're living today, and that's what it does. I think the dogs bring me back to now. It brings me back to that moment you're with them. You know what I mean? Takes you into the present. So it's the best. For me, it works the best. That's my best, pick me up.
I can see that. And I'm the same way, man. There's nothing better than when I get home from my daytime job, and the first thing that I get is getting barked at coming up to the front door because they're all excited. Dad's home! Dad's home! Oh, my God, Dad is home! It's awesome. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a good feeling because and like I said, it doesn't matter where you've been or what you've done or anything. They're just happy that you're there, and it's just that connection, and that connection with your dog brings you back to now, and you kind of get past what you were going through when you were gone to work. So it's the best thing I can say.
Awesome. Alan R. Warren is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Alan, when you go into looking for what true crime subject you are going to cover, I've noticed a lot of your titles are kind of obscure. They're older cases or even cases that people may not remember or have never heard of. I mean, you have an audience around the world for your books. Somebody in the United States, the majority of people in the United States, since that's where most of our listener base is, aren't actually going to know where Wells Gray Park is or a lot of these other areas. How do you choose the stories you want to write about?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. In this particular case, it was brought to my attention from someone. It was something I'd never heard of, and they asked me about it. And so I looked it up. And if I find the case to be kind of interesting, then I approach family members. I see who I can find that's involved and see who is willing to be part of it, if they want to be part of it. It's very important that they're on board. If they're not, I usually put it aside. And in this particular case, what I mean by find interesting is, for me, the story is not so much about the murder, or the murders. They're there, and I give the basic rundown on them, but I'm not sitting there giving this gory description about it, because that's not what my focus is. My focus is it's an event. It's a tragic event, and it's the follow-up that's important. It's how does everybody get through this? And that goes from the family members, surviving victims if there are, the killer themselves, their families, and how does the justice system work for these people? I mean, really work. And that's the story I want to tell. I don't want to just, talk about, the killer grew up here and he did this and then he went and then get through all these murders and then kind of end it, ended up in life. There's so much more to that story that revolves around the humanity, the people, and how we are to each other. And that's what interests me in a story.
It's not so much about the popularity because, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If I see another Zodiac book or I see another book on, Jeffrey Dahmer or somebody like that, it's kind of irritating. You know what I'm saying? It's not for the effort, but rarely do those type of books, when you're the 30th to the 60th to the 100th book out there, do you have any brand new information?
Right. I think what happens is Zodiac and Jack the Ripper and all those, they're becoming inclusive. They're almost like to their own group, just like the JFK assassination. There's certain ones that are just living on within their own community. They're not even writing books that are meant for the general public anymore because they're so enthralled and it's so complex, the stories they're telling now and the details. And it's not really something that's really solvable, and it's something that I'm interested in, but I'm not really interested in trying to solve it.
Okay, so why do it?
Well, yeah. I think it's just something people do. For me, I like reporting on it. I like talking to the people that do the research on those cases. Like Jack the Ripper, I've talked to 25, 30 people on interviews, and I think that's great. But I'm not going to go out there and do the research because I don't find any advantage to it.
Right, and I see that. And I see that. And you know what? When you have a reputation like you've built up, your audience is, and your readers are looking for those obscure cases that are just so interesting. It's the same thing with me, Al, in UFOs or paranormal. I'm so sick and tired of people who are investigators. I love them because I need them, but I like those obscure stories that maybe somebody has never told on the air before, and they finally got the courage to discuss it. That's what I find, where I find we get some of the best radio, like what we do here. And for you, being an author, it must be the same way.
Yeah, because again, you're looking for the humanity, right? You're looking for something in it that's unique and something that talks to people, not only as the writer but as a listener. So it's a real important thing. You have to have that connection. If we're just repeating and we're just fighting about who we think killed, who the Zodiac was and things like that, then it's, I don't know. I don't find that as interesting. I don't find that as important, and I'll get a few bad feedback for that. But when you're in the paranormal community, right? One of the biggest distractions was the popularity it gained over the last 10 years with the television psychics and mediums and all the ghost hunting. What happens is there becomes a formula, not only to the show, but to the way that the television mediums perform. And you probably find that in the UFOs. They all sort of have the same rules. They all sort of have the same regulations. So only the stories that fit that are the ones they air. So I kind of found myself going in a different direction, and that's the same as true crime. I'm not writing things that television shows are calling me for the most part. I have written a couple, and now I'm getting all these crime shows calling me about a couple of my books, which is totally surprising because it's not why I wrote them.
Well, either way, though, it's nice to get that respect.
It is, but it's kind of it is until you do them, uh, because like I'm talking about The Killing Game, the Rodney Alcala. When I first wrote that book years ago, nobody would publish it, nobody, and I already had books out with publishers, and so I self-published it, and now he's become popular, and the publishers picked it up, and now I've got the third television show now wanting to have me go on and talk about it. That was not my intention when I wrote it. So it's a good thing. I'm glad it happened afterwards, but it's certainly not what I'm looking for.
How do you... No, let me rephrase. What subjects will you not write about? Because everybody has a standard of what they will do and what they won't do in bringing out to the public. You as a writer, myself as a radio broadcaster, I know we have topics here that will never make it onto this show. How about you? Is there any subjects that you will not write about?
I haven't given that a lot of thought. I think that that sounds weird, eh? But no, I think what it is if I'll write about anything, but it's got to be real. I got to believe it's real. I got to believe this is a true story. I got to believe this is true emotions. And I got to believe that who's telling me the story, it's coming from the right place. And the only thing I ever edit or cut back on is some of the details. Like in this Murder Time 6, there was a few details about what had happened to the two little girls that I know. I know what happened to them. But the details are so, I don't even know how to say the word, but they're just really so disgusting that I can't put that in there. I can put the basic and give you an idea, but I can't get into the grossness of what some people do to other people. And so that's where I draw the limit. It's not so much the story if it's real.
Yeah, and there has to be some humanity in it.
Well, yeah, and in fact, with that book there, before I even had it published, I made sure that the cops involved and a lot of the family members all had a copy of the manuscript and go through it, and then I wanted their feedback, and I wanted to know what worked for them, what didn't, and then I made the changes that were appropriate, and then we went ahead with it. So there's a responsibility to writing something like this on someone's family, because I can write the book and then kind of walk away. They've got to live it. They've lived it their whole lives, and they're going to finish out their life with this tragedy. Whereas for me, it's not my family, but so there's a big responsibility to how I tell it, and they've got to be on board from the beginning to the end.
Right. Why do that? Why have that passion or that ability to even care about the families when so many don't?
Well, it might be a little bit of be pretty naive, but in my mind, I'm hoping it's work that will stick around. I'm hoping that the work I do while I'm alive is stuff that is good enough to carry on over time, that someone in 50 years could pick up the book, however they sell books then, and look through it and kind of go, yeah, and really relate to what I'm saying, and to know that the way I've told it is the best way I could have with all the people involved. It represents them, not me, and so I'm hoping that's what people get out of the book, and I'm hoping that's where it goes, and I guess I won't know because I won't be here in 50 years, but that's kind of my direction when I do it.
I guess I'm looking at the humanity side of it. That it's like, to me, what I see, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is you're trying to tell the stories of the families and the people involved in trying to solve this case, whereas many times we seem so focused and romanticizing about the killer.
Oh, exactly, and that's also what I mean. You know, maybe these cases I've done it subconsciously, but these cases, a lot of them, it hasn't been about a famous killer because that's not what the story should be about. I mean, they have to be involved because it's their actions that caused it, but it shouldn't be about that. I could never see myself doing a Ted Bundy or any of those things because they're celebrities, and it's not really about them. They're only one part of that story, so I don't know. I'm kind of past all that. I think that it's just got to be about the story. You're right, the humanity, and I've got to tell the story from all sides, because if you don't have it from all sides, you're not going to get a real perspective of it. If I just tell it from one side in one direction, then you're just getting part of it, and that's not good enough.
What's usually the reaction from the families after you've written a book and you've said, look, this is the manuscript, I want you to sign off on this?
Well, I think for me, it's they've been on it all the way through, and I'll ask questions at different times during the process. And then when I go to write it, I sit down and write it, and then I send it out and say, tell me what you think. And then it's a hard few days, stressed, and then they come back with their opinions and how they feel, and then what they like and don't like, and then I discuss it to kind of figure out, well, what do we do to make this correct? But I very seldom have to do anything like that, because they're so involved throughout the story, and I guess you see, because the thing is, when I first meet people and when I first decide that this is something I'll write, I want to know what's in it for them, what they want out of it, what's important to them, and if it fits with what I want to do, then it happens. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think it does. Have you ever had, as we got about 90 seconds to go here before we go to break, have you ever had a family member just throw it right back in your face and say, no, this isn't what I want. You know, you're bringing up too much long time pain that I thought I was over. Have you ever had that happen?
No, not like that. I've had a few, like even with this book, where people they didn't like how they were talked about. They didn't like how they were described in the book. And so for me, I look at it whether it's coming from their own anger with the case, or if it's something that's real. Because I don't really have a dog in the race, so to speak. So I want to make sure that it's telling the right story. So sometimes I go to other members of the family and we kind of talk about it, and I try to make it work.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, that I can see where the stress would pick up there. I really do, because I mean, the last thing you want to do is piss off the family.
Right. I mean, it's got to be about them. It's their story. It's their life. It's how they've lived the last years of their life and how they're going to live out the rest. So it's got to be good for them.
Very true. Alan R. Warren is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He's got a brand new book out, Murder x6. This is the one you want to get. It's the true story of the Wells Gray Park murders. And for all of our American and worldly listeners tuning into this show, we will tell you where Wells Gray Park is and how it's close to home for me. The park literally starts about an hour south of me, right in Bigfoot territory. Alan R. Warren continues on Spaced Out Radio True Crime tonight on the mighty SOR. How you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm fine. Not too bad.
Rock
Just
and roll.
Looking at my dogs.
Nice. How many dogs do you have?
Well, I have two right now.
Oh.
The problem is they don't live very long.
Right.
But I have a Chihuahua. She's about 10. She was left at McDonald's,
Oh, no.
and so we call her Nugget, like Chicken McNugget. Yeah, I know. You go through these horrible things, but
Can you tell when they're about to transition?
no idea. I wish. So a lot of the things you hear from mediums and stuff that are in the business, it's not exactly correct. As far as I'm concerned, in my experience, I guess I should say. So, no, I don't know anything about that. A dog's going to transition. Actually, I don't really believe in dog communicators. So, shock.
I'm actually kind of stunned by that.
I know. I just, I've spent too many years with too many of them. And I don't know. I'm not really, I'm not convinced of it.
Hey, I got to ask you, in regards to writing these books, do you get a lot of your, and I didn't want to ask this while we're on the air, I'll ask it while we're on the YouTube side, but do you get a lot of messages from those who have crossed over and helping you write it?
No.
Or do you stay away from that?
Yeah, and for the most part, what I pick up is from places, not so much from people directly. So when I'm in a location is when I get I guess what people consider coming across. I find I don't get that sitting at home. Again, I think that's another kind of thing that television sort of ruined the idea of what a medium does and what really happens. They make it sound like they can go into a room and talk to the dead body, dead person, in the middle of, a studio or something, and it's just not what they I don't want to say pretend. It's not, for me anyway. It's not that way. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble, but
yeah, no, I understand that, because I would assume that you would have to be, like someone in your position would have to be very careful with actually having that happen, just in case something private from the court case that has been sealed or something along those lines came out.
Yeah, and it usually it's nothing that specific, but it's more about a feeling or an emotion. It's more about whether you just whether it's right or wrong. That's the most general way I can describe it. The best way.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's just there. But actually, and I think that's why a lot of the cases I do too are outside of here. This is the first time I've ever done a Western Canadian sort of case.
Mm-hmm.
So close to home, you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, because this park is right in between you and I.
Yeah, so it's very. That's the first time I've ever ventured to do something like that, and it's very. It's been a very strange process, and I don't know that I would do another Western Canadian crime again.
How come? Too close to home?
Too close. Yeah, too close to home. And you know what? Most of my buyers and fan bases in the U.S. or Australia, and I like it that way. And up here, nobody really knows me as a writer or anything. But now it's kind of made me a writer in the neighborhood.
Yes.
Like even Global News is calling me, and Capital News and all these local, and then they put all my information in, and then I feel like I'm exposed.
Yeah, this is your hiding spot.
It used to be my hiding spot.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. I kind of like that distance.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of losing it with this book because of that. So, it's good and it's bad.
I know the feeling. That's why I'm glad that I live where I do, because even if people wanted to come up here, well, they just couldn't.
Yes, they couldn't find it. Yeah. No, it's just a strange life, you know.
Oh, very true.
You know what we deal with, and when you're in the public, like even you
Yeah.
know that, um, you know, it's a
Oh,
strange
yeah.
life.
Hold on,
You
my
get
friend. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters as the snow continues to fall outside. But don't worry, we're nice and warm and toasty inside. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we continue on with best-selling author Alan R. Warren, his latest book, Murder Times 6, the true story of the Wells Gray Park murders here in British Columbia. Alan, welcome back.
Well, thank you.
Oh, nice to have you here, man. Good times. Good times. For people who do not know British Columbia, and the majority of our listeners don't because, well, they know where it is, but they have no idea what's around our scenario here. Me being from British Columbia, I know that Wells Gray Park starts about an hour southeast of me, and this is a giant park. This is massive. Like, we're talking 1.3 million acres, 5,000 square miles. This is a large piece of natural property here.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's kind of one of the highlight parks, definitely of Western Canada, probably in the top 3 of Canada, period. I mean, it's a place you'd want to go if you want to see some outdoor beauty and just nature. You know, the just everything, the mountains, the trees. It's so incredible. It's a great place to go.
Okay, so what makes that park so special? I mean, is it the waterfalls? Is it the just the nature? I mean, there's like 58 different species of animals in that area.
I think just all of that. I think it's incredible because it's like stepping into total nature, it's just incredible. All the trees, the life, just everything going on. It's just I don't know. It's a place you want to take yourself if you want to be away from the city. It's the place to go.
I could definitely see that. That is for sure, Al. And you know, the one thing about the nature of it all is, I mean, there are places here in British Columbia that people have never walked. There are places where people have never even seen, let alone photographed or seen on movies or documentaries or outside of a helicopter or an airplane that's taking photos of the picturesque nature. I mean, we're literally talking about some very untapped areas here.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of it. You're going to places that you don't have a whole lot of people. You don't have a whole lot of things that have happened there before. You know, it's not built up, and so it's just it's a beautiful place to go. It's kind of going back in time and a ways. You know, it's something you just can't get anywhere. And you know, British Columbia and Western Canada, even Canada in a whole, is just an incredible country. It's so big, and there's so much there to see. And you're right, so many people just don't take the time.
So let's go back in time here. When you started writing Murder Times 6, what led you to writing this story and feeling the need that it needs to be told? Because we're going back almost 40 years plus here.
Yeah, it was mentioned to me at a hair salon in Kelowna. Yeah, like I need a hair salon. The owner buys some of my books all the time, and I saw her, and she asked me if I had ever researched this case, and to be honest, I'd never heard of it. And when she said, "Well, haven't you seen the Johnson Bentley Aquatic Center that's been dedicated to them in West Kelowna?" And I was like, "No, this is all new." So it was really intriguing. And so I went through some of the case information I could find out, and I thought, well, this is interesting, and I researched, and there really hadn't been much ever written or done about the case either, and it was so horrific. I mean, 6 people killed. Wow, that's big in Canada, especially in BC and up north. So that really intrigued me. So it was really going to be up to members of the family. And the first person I talked to, connected with, I think, was Shelley Woods Bowden, and she was a part of the family, and she was right on it. And the main reason she was on it was because the killer of her family goes up for parole in actually next June of 21. And it struck me, and she was so worried he's going to get out, and I kind of thought, well, that's weird. How could you kill 6 people and be up for parole, right?
No kidding.
I mean, how does that happen? And so I thought, well, I have to find out what's really going on in this case. And as I got more into it, I realized that, yeah, he was going to be up for parole, and yes, he's got a really good chance of getting out. And there's so many more details I found out. And of course, the family was looking for something to refresh the memory of Canadians and to have something to almost solidify how they feel and something they can talk about and show to a parole board or to the public in general when this happens.
Okay, so this gentleman, we'll get into him a little bit later on in the show, but let's start the case right now. When did this start?
Well, it happened in the summer of 1982, and the Johnson family, there was the parents. It was Bob and Jackie, and they were in their early 40s, and they had 2 girls, Janet and Karen, who was 13 and 11. And they lived in West Bank, which is now part of Kelowna. It's West Kelowna, but back then it was just a small little town outside of Kelowna. And so they went away in August to go camping and fishing and get out of the house. They were actually a family that was quite close, and they did everything. They would go out boating, fishing, skidoo, all of that stuff, and that's why they lived where they lived. Because they loved all of the recreation, all the stuff you could do in the wilderness. And so August, this was 2 weeks to go to Wellscray Park, and they were going to meet the grandparents. That was the wife's parents, and they were going to, spend 2 weeks together and fish camp, and Grandma was going to collect berries because she made pies. It was just one of those close family spend time before school gets back in. And that's kind of the basic rundown of how it started.
Interesting. So here they are going for a nice family vacation and, going to spend some time in the wilderness in one of the most beautiful areas of this province. And where were they during this?
Well, they went to Wellscray, but then what they did was they went to an area that wasn't a traditional campsite, like how there's the campsite ones that you can go. They wanted to kind of be away from the crowds, so to speak, and so they found this great location just outside of an old abandoned prison or jail, and so it was great because it had flat ground, and the grandparents had a camper, so they could, set it to rest and build a campfire. It was really a good location, close to the river, so they can go fish. It was a great setting. And so they set up camp there. They set up a tent for the girls, and the parents all slept in the camper, and their vacation started.
Wonderful. Put the young ladies out in the tent so that way they can get attacked by the grizzly bears and cougars.
Well, I sort of think it was probably because, the parents could sit around and have a few beers and talk after the kids go to bed, and, they couldn't really do that if they were in the camper, probably.
Very true. Very true. So here they are enjoying their family vacation in the middle of nowhere, just to get some peace and tranquility, be one with nature. And how did they come across the man who would eventually kill them?
Well, they were. There's a couple of different stories, so this is a hard one to be specific with, because we heard different stories from the killer, and him him being the only one alive. You kind of have to take that and take it with a grain of salt. But it seems like he had run across the girls on his way home from work when they were out playing in the old jail. They were out just goofing around, and he had watched them. And then he went back to his ranch, his house where he lived. Apparently, for the next couple of nights, he came and he watched them. He found their campsite and he watched the parents and the kids for 2 nights. And then the third night, he came back and he entered the campsite and he killed the 4 parents.
Well, that's terrible. How did he do it?
Well, he said, as he was walking into the campsite, there were the 4 sitting around the fire, and one female had saw the shadow of him moving and stood up. So he said to them, "Don't move. I've got a gun." And the father stood up, and so he shot the father. And then the other 3 adults kind of scattered. Grandpa was going for their rifle in the truck, and the mother was going for the girls in the tent, and he shot them all. Now, why I say with a grain of salt is, first of all, if you picture that scenario, it doesn't seem right, because he had like a 22. The whole, you can't just, you have 4 people scattering. He shot them all in the head. Okay. So there's almost the belief, and the story is, one of the stories I heard was that what he did was he walked in and he made them all lay down, face down on the ground. And then he shot them all in the head. Because on the father, he had actually shot him in the neck. So the father had probably tried to get up when he started shooting them, and he got shot in the neck. And so that's sort of why, because with that kind of a rifle, you don't get 4 adults running in the backs of their head, So that part of the story is really questionable because of the evidence. And the other part was because then he said he went to the tent and he told the girls to stay in there. See, at first he told the cop that he shot the 2 girls. See, and then, but then later he confessed that actually he took the 2 girls with him back to his ranch. And initially he attacked them in the tent. We don't know what he did. Well, we've heard stories. And then when he came out of the tent, the father was still alive, actually, and gurgling because he was shot in the throat. So he shoots the father in the head in front of the 2 girls. Then he piles the adult bodies, into the parents' car. And then he makes the girls ride in the front seat with him back to the ranch. So that's kind of the rough story of what he told us. And now he's told a different story, and we do know more. So it's not exactly how he said it happened.
David Williams Shearing, what's this guy all about?
Well, he was 23 at this time when this happened. He was a native of Clearwater, and he lived there with his parents. He had an older brother and sister. The oldest brother, Greg, became a sheriff, and the sister was unstable, was in and out of mental institutes. The mother got sick, was put in the hospital, and the father died, all when he was a teenager. And it left him at the ranch alone, his father's ranch. And that's that. I don't want to say he seemed pretty normal, but he was a pretty average guy as far as Clearwater, and nothing out of the ordinary was happening with Shearing at that time. So, but what did happen was after the killings, he went up to Dawson Creek, and he went to a place they called it Dog Patch, and it was a little area where a lot of workers were, because there was a lot of coal, I guess, being dug and mines being set up, and so there was a lot of building going on in Tumbler Ridge and some of the area, and so it was really easy to get a job there, and so he went up there to get work. And a lot of the police up there, and the police that I talked to, said that they had a lot of ex-cons. They had a lot of people with bad work records, but people would go there and do construction and make money. But even David Shearing couldn't succeed there. He kept getting fired, and he was not making it even in a place like that. So this led to the next thing. So him and a bunch of guys got together and started stealing equipment and tools and things from different construction sites and reselling it. And some of his buddies were selling drugs, and they ended up just stealing wood and building a shack on someone else's property that they didn't have permission to, and lived there out in the woods. And they were surviving by stealing things and selling them. So that kind of gives you the character of what he was like just after the killings.
And realistically, I mean, when you look at the development and all the trauma this young man had early on in his life, he had no direction.
Right. There was no direction at all. And he sort of had weird relationship with his sister, with his mother, and even his father. And there was a lot of stories that came back to me throughout the research and putting together the book about his relationship with his sister, and a lot of the rumors. And it just didn't. It sounded like he had a lot of issues at home, and he had to get away, and he did. And it might also be kind of why he did what he did to the kids, to the girls. So it's kind of one of those things. I talked to an FBI, a guy that did this for 30 years with sexual offenders, and I've got a pretty good take on what the group, the FBI, thinks of someone like this. But I just don't know. I think we'll never know.
So basically, to put everything in a nutshell, he wanted to kidnap these two young ladies, but saw that there were 4 adults there. So in order to get them, he had to take the parents out.
Exactly. He killed the 4 adults to get to the girls. He wanted to have sex with the girls, and he figured that was the only way he was going to get that. So this is what he did, and And that's why I said I didn't get into a lot of the details, but the general idea was that he had this um, feeling that he had to strip them naked and bondage, tie them up, and then do sexual things. And so that was kind of what he was driven by. That was his urge, his fantasy, and so that's what he was doing to the girls.
Oh, that's sickening.
Well, and it gets even worse because even when I had talked to him and met him in prison, the thing is, you see, because when he's going for a parole like this, he's suggesting now that he no longer has those fantasies. He hasn't had those fantasies for years. It's gone. He's cured. And he's saying that because, you see, he's remarried a woman from general population out of the Calgary area who's found him online, met him, married, and she gets conjugal visits and the whole thing. So he said since then he only fantasizes about adult females now, no longer children. So that's one of his reasonings for getting out of prison. So, that's why it was important that I put in what he did do, but not get too graphic. Do you know what I mean? Because people have to understand. And so when I talked to him, you see, there was the two girls. One was 13, one was 11. The 11-year-old, while he had her tied up, she didn't know or understand what he wanted. And so when he was talking to me, and even he's talked to one of the cops about this, he was so frustrated and so upset with her that within a day, he just shot her in the head because an 11-year-old didn't know how to do it. So when you think about that, it's devastating. It's a devastating thought to think of an 11-year-old who didn't understand what sex really was. This was in 82 as well, so, we're even talking about a more naive time. And you have an 11-year-old that, because she doesn't know how to do what she is supposed to do for him, he gets frustrated and shoots her. So, that's what I mean. So that's what's really important about this case.
How does he not get premeditated murder for that?
Because what he did was, first of all, he took the 4 adult bodies in the car, drove it back to a trophy mountain, I believe, and he burned them out. So he put accelerant and burned the bodies. And he also, he finished with both girls eventually. I think it was 12 or 13 days with the older girl, shoots her, and he takes those 2 bodies and burns them as well in the trunk of the car. And so by the time they'd found the bodies, they couldn't even tell there were 6. They actually thought the grandparents were still missing, and the camper and all that, because they had no camper. They just had the parents' cars, and it was burned so badly they couldn't tell anything. They knew that the 2 girls were there because there was a skull that was too small to be an adult, and it had a bullet hole in the head. But it had been burned so badly they couldn't even match the bullet to the rifle, And it took them a while because, remember, DNA was not DNA. It was, So they actually had to it took them weeks in Vancouver lab to figure out who the adults were.
My goodness.
So it was pretty bad.
Alan, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. True crime writer Alan R. Warren is here with us about his new book, Murder Times 6. The true story of the Wells Gray Park murders can be found at any major bookstore in North America. He's one of the best in his field, and we're going to open up the Wells Gray murders right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Very rarely do I want to get sick. I almost got sick there when you were talking.
It's gross. One, it's gross. That's why, and you can't even go.
Oh yeah.
They see that was such a hard thing to go through, and also to know all the details, and then to kind of go, well, I can't even write a lot of this stuff.
No kidding.
Right? There's no respect to the family or to the kids, and they're all still alive.
Horrible.
Al,
I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay? I'll be right back.
Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and we have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey Space Travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Tribe and Tribe Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little different. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Tribe Charities, just go to tribecharities.org/donate.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Okay, Alan, I'm back, as you can see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we made a few listeners a little ill there, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Welcome to the Canadian justice system where a sicko like this can get parole.
Well, it's happening a lot in the States, too. I was talking to an author, Rod Sadler, an ex-cop, and he's got a book out, came out at the same time, called Killing Woman, and it's the same thing. His guy's up for parole as well, and he did just as bad as stuff, if not worse.
It reminds me of, the Clifford Olson fiasco when he was able to apply for parole every few years, and he never stopped torturing the family until his death.
Yeah, and it's the same thing here. He does the same thing. This is this third one. He's doing the same thing, but the thing people don't realize is that they do get out. You know, we have a huge release of killers and people that do really bad things. And the unfortunate thing is, even our stats, if you look up the stats in Canada, 30% of them that get out reoffend in a violent situation like rape or murder. So it's not a good scenario.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah. Excuse me. Hey, I just want to remind our listeners on YouTube that if I could see everything kind of buffering here a little bit, and the reason why it is we're having a snowstorm here right now, and so all the snow plowing that I did yesterday is all for naught now. So I do apologize for that. Also want to give a shout out to Major Lee, Vinny, and BBD Warrior for the awesome super chats. Thank you so much. If you're new to our channel, welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and go to the SOR Vault on Facebook for your shirts. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us as we broadcast from the frozen Canadian tundra here in central British Columbia. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. Don't forget you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is Habromania. Habromania is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Alan R. Warren. He is one of the top true crime writers in North America, if not the world. His latest book, Murder Times 6, the true story of the Wells Gray Park murders here in British Columbia. It is gory. It is grotesque. Listener discretion is advised. I will say that. Alan's website, alanrwarren.com. Alan, welcome back.
Well, thank you.
Not a problem. Let's take a step back here in Murder Times 6. How did they figure out that these people were missing?
Well, they never came home, and the father worked at the Gorman Mills, which is it's still here today. It's been one of the major workplaces here in the western part of Kelowna, and when he didn't show up, a friend, even his boss, tried to locate them or any of the family. And after the day of figuring out that they hadn't come back, he called the RCMP and said, hey, Bob was always here and he hasn't showed up and the family isn't back and it's been over 2 weeks. So that was kind of how it started. And RCMP called up to the Clearwater branch, and I guess they sent a few people out and they checked with the park, and that's kind of how it all started.
Oh my goodness! So when the RCMP in Clearwater, and I know that town well, good people there, good, honest, hardworking people. When they started the search, what did they find? How did they know it was an immediate crime scene?
Well, they didn't not initially. At first, they, most people in their minds were thinking that they're lost, or they got broke down, or something. Someone got hurt, like they, because the last thing on your mind, 1982, and is that someone murdered the family of 6, right? That just it was not on their minds. So it wasn't a right away. They were checking around and talking to park employees and things like that. And so at first it was more of a concern. So it wasn't a jump in, this is a crime scene and something's going on.
Oh, my goodness. How long did it take before they were able to get on a trace that there was something of a mystery here that needed to be solved?
Well, actually, what had happened was the car had been located by, I believe, mushroom pickers. And it was a burnt-out car. And they reported it to the police, and so Clearwater Police went out and they matched the plate. And so when they run it, they found out that it was the Johnson's car, and it was all burnt out. So, of course, they knew that, okay, there's trouble. And so they called in the Kamloops police. And what it is Kamloops and the RCMP have a criminal task, for major crimes. They have a unit that's set up for things like murder and stuff like that. And so that was Sergeant Eastham. And so he came out with a few other members of his team. And that's when they started searching the car.
So they start searching the car, and I guess, through their own forensics and, with the latest technology of the time, which is nothing like what we have today, real police work told them that they were dealing with something potentially heinous.
Yeah, they could tell in the back seat that there was burned bodies. They couldn't tell how many or what who it was, because it was burnt so badly. When Eastham opened the trunk, when he pried it open, you could tell there was bodies in the back. It looked like 2 little skulls, one for sure, of probably the little girls, right, with a bullet hole in the head. So he knew the girls were back there, and that's what I said. Initially, they thought, well, it was just the family. But because the camper and that wasn't there, and he thought, they thought, well, the grandparents and the camper are still somewhere. Maybe they were robbed, and maybe they're at gunpoint, maybe they're being held hostage. That kind of got in their mind right at that time.
My goodness. So how long did it take for the police to finally find the camper?
Well, it took quite a bit longer. And again, because what had happened was, like I said, it took them a long time to figure out who was actually in the back seat of the car. So they were looking, and so what they decided to do was get a replica camper and truck. And the grandparents had a fairly new one, the 1981, so it was a new camper truck. And so they took this replica and they drove it all across Canada. It took them about 2 weeks, stopped in most major towns and cities, gave out brochures, and they tried to get people to see if anybody had seen a new camper like that come through. And what happened was, in Saskatchewan, a waitress said that she had seen that truck and camper, and there was 2 young French-Canadian guys, and they came in and ate in the restaurant. And so that was the first lead. And then eventually in Ontario, a mechanic called in and said, I worked on, these guys French guys had a truck and camper, and they wanted me to paint the truck, and the passenger side of the truck had a bullet hole in it, and they wanted it fixed. And that really queued up because, a bullet hole, the whole thing. And to top it off, that mechanic said that they also had a rifle that they wanted to sell for cash, just straight across the board. This mechanic wouldn't do it and sent him to someone he knew in Detroit, across the border from Ontario. So that's where the cops were looking. The cops thought for sure these were the guys, and what they were doing, they weren't sure, I guess, but that's who they had their attention on. And Meanwhile, back in the park area, 2 forest workers ended up finding the burnt-out truck camper and called it in again to Clearwater, and Baruda, he's the RCMP there, went out, matched again the plate, and called it into the RCMP task unit, and they couldn't believe it at first. They thought for sure that was the 2 guys that they were chasing, and it wasn't.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So when they found this burnt out truck and trailer, I'm going to assume that Grandma and Grandpa were in there.
No, actually, see, this is what they did, all of that, and then eventually the forensic at the time in 82 came back and said that they had found a plate, like this little plate that came out of the mouth. It was to hold in the dentures of the time, I guess, from the 70s, and they knew it was the grandmother's. So the grandparents had been amongst the ashes in the car all along. They just couldn't figure it out in time. So there was no bodies actually in the truck and camper.
Okay.
It was just that the forensics was so, I don't want to say bad, but it was so primitive then, and he had burned them out so bad, so hot that they had very little to go on. And it just took them a long time to identify one of the bodies as the grandmother. And so, like I said, it was just a time thing.
I understand that this area is very, very remote, but when you're in the mountains like that, there is a lot of echoing. Nobody heard an explosion of a vehicle at all, or 2 vehicles?
Well, no. Nothing was ever reported, and both vehicles were discovered much after the crime. So if someone did hear it, they didn't report it, or they knew about it. And when you talk about Clearwater, when I was in doing this investigating, and the rumors were spreading that there was a book coming out, and people found me. And I got so many tips and emails from people in Clearwater. You would not believe how much information was coming out of that town and how many stories I was getting. Just incredible. Some of the wildest stories you'd ever hear were coming out of that town about what had happened and what had really happened, and all the rumors and what the people in that town believe. It kind of gets crazy. It really does. Some of the stories were just far out.
I'm surprised, though, that with the heat of those fires, knowing that that area is very dry and there's a lot of tinder around and brush around at that time of year, I'm very surprised that neither of these vehicle explosions caused a forest fire, because during that time of year, they would have had people still up in the mountains looking for any type of smoke coming from the forests.
Well, yeah, and that makes sense. And there was a lot of a blowback on the RCMP for not, as they said, doing their job at the time. And there was even an ex-RCMP that came out and complained at the time, and it made all the papers, that they didn't handle the investigation worthwhile. Like they were doing everything wrong, and how they could have not discovered both burnt out vehicles so close to where they were all set up and searching, and where they were looking for them in the park. So there's a whole lot of that, and there still is to this day. And a lot of people say pretty mean things about them, and say that it was just an accident that they found, even found Shearing. And so, yeah, I agree totally.
Yeah, I mean, that just amazes me. And totally off topic, just for our listeners who are listening, Clearwater and its neighboring town, a little town called Barrier, have been surrounded by forest fires off and on for a number of years. And way off topic, huge Sasquatch sightings and UFO sightings in those areas as well. So, I mean, it's just strange around there. It's very strange around there, but good people. Alan R. Warren is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Let's start the trail in finding David Shearing.
Well, after they realized that the truck and camper were there all along, they came back and they set up in Clearwater again, and they decided they were going to do a pretty heavy canvassing. They were going to go to every door, talk to everyone, and if they're not home, they were going to wait till they were home. They were not going to miss one person. So they started a real heavy canvassing. And one of the officers approached a house. And the man came to the door and said, yeah, kind of gruff. And they said, well, I don't know if you've heard, but we're looking for, any information on this case. And he started going off about the case. And this guy's wife or girlfriend at the time came up and stood beside them, and he was saying, well, I know nothing. I don't know anything. And then the wife said, well, aren't you going to tell him about David Shearing? And then so the cop said, well, what? And he said, it's nothing. Forget it. We don't know anything. Slammed the door. So the cops sort of sat back and waited, and they kept it under surveillance, the house. And then when the guy left to go to work, then they approached the female. And she had told them that David Shearing had approached her husband and had a pickup truck with a bullet hole in the passenger side door. And he wanted to know if he could fix it, repaint it, and also get the VIN number off the truck so that he could reinsure it under his own name, I guess, and drive it. So there you go. So all of a sudden the cops are like, well, we have a name now. They had an idea. And so that was what led them to David Shearing.
Was there any DNA or anything? Well, I guess there wouldn't have been DNA back then, but were there any major clues at David Shearing's house in Clearwater?
Well, no. And actually what they did was they were looking for Shearing, and then they found out he had moved up to Tumbler Ridge in that area working. So they called an officer up there named Ron German, and he ended up being a sergeant at RCMP. The big thing about that, the connection there was Ron had known this Shearing, and Shearing up there had, like I said, done a lot of theft, and so I've got a lot of that in there. And he was actually on probation there. He had to come in and see this Ron German every month and sign in. And so they had a history. They knew who he was. He had a violent past up there, like he threatened to burn down a place and threatened to kill someone. And the other thing is, and this is a very important thing, one time when this Constable German was pulling him over in a truck, him and his buddies tried to kill him. And there was even another time that they also tried to kill a cop. And why I say that's important is because when we go back to the parole and how he's running on the idea that he had an issue, had these fantasies that he had to do those things to those girls, but he no longer has that. There was those two attempts where he tried to kill someone for no reason, nothing to do with children, like nothing to do with killing him, the cop, to get to children. It was just for the fact of killing. And there was also a previous crime that hadn't come out at the time, that he actually had run over another guy and killed him. And there's stories about that too. Some people say it was a drug deal that had gone wrong. Others said he just owed him money, but he ran over and killed the guy. So that's 3 different murders or attempted murders that had nothing to do with children.
Horrible human being.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I don't want to go too far into his arrest just yet because we have a lot of show to go yet on this topic, Murder ×6, the true story of the Wellsgray Park murders, a book that is written by the wonderful Alan R. Warren, who is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We've got about 4 minutes here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. What was the tension like in Clearwater, Barrier, and in that entire area of the Southern Caribou region when this happened?
Oh, it was running high, you know, because it's a small town. And back then it was really small. And so everyone knew everyone. And so, you know, Shearing had friends, his family had friends. There was a lot of connections and people that like him and hate him. And so I think a lot of the stories went, some people sort of just, yeah, he did it. I knew it. He's the guy. And other people saying, no, he would never do that type thing. So it was really split. It really split the town in that sort of way until it was all brought to court and finished. Back then, there was a lot of tension about what was real and what wasn't, you know. There was a lot of fear. It was a really strange time because I think there was a lot of, how do I say, you know, maybe naive thinking there that nothing like that would ever happen. And once that happened, it changed people's perspectives. Nobody wanted to go out in the woods, you know. You didn't want to go out camping, especially before they even had a suspect. You imagine the fear of something like that and deciding to go camping with your family, you know? It was just sort of, it tainted the whole area. The park completely died off. There was no business there. And it took actually a few years before business returned.
I can see that. I mean, that's a type of crime that really divides up a community. But what was happening in West Bank at that time while all of this is going on in central British Columbia?
Well, initially, like I said, it was kind of a, you know, everybody was not freaked out. Initially, they were kind of thinking, well, what's going on? Or I wonder what happened. And I wonder if one of them's sick, or, you know, they were worried. They were thinking more about the hospitals, and it just was not even a thought that this would happen. It wasn't even in the mind. So people were moving on as normal. And then when they found the car and they knew there was bodies in it, everyone went into a state of shock. One of the hardest things, too, was when you deal with the kids, because, you know, we're talking about grade 7 and 9 and stuff, you know. The kids are still really young. So I even talked to one of the teachers, and so he had to deal with telling the students. You know, remember back then, when something like this happened, we didn't send in counselors, we didn't send in psychiatrists, we didn't do any of that stuff. It was just, there was no sort of thing set up for that, right?
Oh,
and you know, yeah, we didn't. So we weren't thinking about grief counselors. We were just, oh yeah, they're dead. So, you know, let the teacher tell them. You know, it was.
Yeah. I still remember, you know, I'm 40 years old, 35 years ago when I was in kindergarten, there was a boy that we went to school with, and my school only had kindergarten to grade 3 at that, or grade 3 at that time. And there was a boy that was killed on his bike. He was run over. And I remember the principal to this day calling all the students into the lobby area of the school to tell us what happened. And it was like, okay, well, what do we do now? You know, this is sad, but what do we do? And that's just the way it happened back then. So I understand with what you're saying. Alan, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. An intriguing night of true crime here on Spaced Out Radio. We don't do it often, probably don't do it often enough, but it is amazing when we have people like our guest tonight, best-selling author Alan R. Warren, here on Spaced Out Radio, alanrwarren.com. His latest book, Murder ×6, the true story of the Wellsgray Park murders. We're going to continue with this amazing story right after this on Spaced Out Radio. hit the wrong toggle there. Oops. Man, this is just...
Yeah, it's pretty harsh when you learn what people actually do to other people,
Yeah, I just cannot imagine. Cannot imagine.
Yeah, just like I said, it's really distressing when you actually hear these stories and go through these stories, and man, it's crazy. And talking with the families, some of them, it's just like it happened yesterday,
No, I know. I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, horrible.
Well, you sit there and you're talking, and they're just bawling like it just happened. Like, it's been so hard on these people, the people that survive it, and these probations are just crazy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like 30 years. How? Like, if you take the Clifford Olson one again, for 30 years, how do you, as a justice system, allow him to torment the families of what he did to their children in letters?
Worse.
Like, how do you not intercept those letters from a mass murderer?
Well, you see, the thing is, when you get into it, you start to realize that the parole board's set up there to rehabilitate. So to them, that means getting people out. So the more people they get into society as a working, productive member, the more successful they are as a group. So their mind is not set on the victims' families as much as it is on the person that's the criminal. It's kind of ass backwards. It's really strange.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't get it. I really don't. And I don't know. I mean, I could go off on a big tangent here, but I won't.
No. Well, it's kind of one of those things that's slow burning. It's something that's, I think it's changing slowly, but it takes so long.
Oh, true. Yeah.
But I'll bet you 2-1 he's going to get out.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've got some stuff I can tell you.
Okay, 1 second here. I'm writing it down. Horrible. Horrible. Man.
And can you imagine what kind of a woman searches for life prisoners online, meets them, marries them, and has conjugal visits with them? Like, what is in your mind? I don't know. I always try to wonder what.
There's a book for you. Women who've done that.
I give one chapter to her and spent time with her, and that was enough. I just can't say enough bad about her. I just cannot. I cannot. And the worst part was when she married him, which was 15 years ago. She had two little girls at that time from her first marriage that were about the age of the girls he raped and killed.
That's sickening.
It's just, you just want to take the woman and slap her. And I don't slap people, so it's just, it's crazy. We're getting in Jerry Springer territory.
No kidding. Horrible. Horrible. We've got just over a minute here.
Hey, it's raining here.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll just stick with the snow. I'll take the snow over the rain.
Yeah, it started snowing probably about 5 or 6 tonight, and then it turned to rain.
Let me check my forecast here. What's the temperature at 108 Mile Ranch? Let's see. Right now it is 31 Fahrenheit, -1 Celsius. And
that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. Snowfall with totaling amounts of 10 to 15 centimeters. So there's 2.5 centimeters per inch. So that's 5 to 7 inches of snow. Thank you very much, Mother Nature. Oh, then we get a reprieve tomorrow. Back to snow on Wednesday, and then sun and clouds Thursday, Friday, Saturday, snow Monday or Sunday, Monday. Lovely. Lovely.
Well, it's 34 here, raining.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, my
Doesn't
friend.
bad.
Hold on 1 second. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in as we have one of those odd nights where we stay away from the paranormal and supernatural and get into true crime, and we will get back to it right after I remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with best-selling author Alan R. Warren. His website, alanrwarren.com. Murder Times 6, the true story of the Wells Gray Park murders, on sale now at every major bookstore and online. He's one of the top crime writers here in North America, and I'm going to say the world as well. Alan, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. The world.
I went there. I did. I don't care what anybody says, Alan. I went there.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, Al. I'm a little upset right now because right during the break we read the forecast. We were talking about the weather here. It's snowing like anything. It's supposed to get another 5 to 7 inches of snow. You know, I just literally took my snowblower out and blew away about 7 inches of snow yesterday. This means all my work was for nothing, and I got to redo it now.
Yeah, maybe quite a few times. It's only the beginning.
Trust me. I know. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate that.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. It's a good friend of this show, Alan R. Warren, but no, he does not lift snow shovels. Anyways, continuing on with your amazing book, Murder Times 6 here. I mean, right before the break, we were talking about the killer, David Shearing. I mean, this was a young man. He was only 23, 24 years old, and the police were hot on the track. When they started interviewing him in regards to committing this crime or about this crime, was he quite defiant? Did he deny everything, or did he come out and just say, yeah, it was me?
Well, actually, the Eastham, the guy that interviewed him, took a different approach. He kind of took him on as a friend and kind of talked to him about things like his mother and God and all of these endearing qualities, and then started talking about some of the other things he had done and never brought up the murders right away. And after a little bit of time, he finally said, so do you know why we have you in here? And he's like, no. And so Eastham said, well, and he brings up the name of that guy that he had run over a few years before. And that relieved Shearing. Shearing thought, oh, okay. And it sort of loosened him up. And so he talked about that, saying that he couldn't get his foot off the gas and it was an accident and all this. And it sort of loosened him up. And then eventually they got around to the Johnson-Bentley murders. And he didn't really deny or fight. I put the whole interview in it because it was a pretty masterful interview by Sergeant Eastham. He really, really lured him in. And it got to where he trusted him. And he actually just started telling him about things. And before you knew it, he was writing up his confession. Now, the only thing is This is where Shearing had said that he had killed them so that he could steal their stuff. He wanted to steal the boat and the camper and different things that they had, and that's kind of all he told them. So that's all they had at that time.
He never gave any sort of testimony as to why.
No, just that was it. I wanted to steal their stuff. I wanted it. I wanted their boat. I wanted their motor. He had all these things that he wanted to steal. And when they did search where he lived, they did find some of their stuff. So, he did steal some of their stuff. So that's kind of all they had. Eastham knew there was more to it, that he didn't believe him, but they had no evidence. They couldn't even match the bullets. They had nothing they could say. Like, they couldn't prove rape, or they couldn't prove any of that stuff. So they had nothing. And so they took him they flew him to Clearwater, and they took him to the park and had him reenact what had happened and how he hid the car and the truck and how he burned them and all that. So he did all of that for them. He didn't really struggle or fight to do that. He just did it. He didn't ask to see a lawyer or any of that.
Did he all of a sudden get a conscience?
I don't know if it's really a conscience as in I think he felt. You see, if you read through the actual interview, I think he just sort of got lured into it, got caught up, and he just he told him what he thought all he had to. He didn't really come clean. He really didn't. From what you learn later on, compared to what he actually told them and what he confessed to, is two different things and two different intentions and way two different things that he did. It was just not even close. But again, with no evidence, and that's all. He's the only person alive. There's nothing else they could do. And in fact, when they charged him then with the murders, they went second degree. And there was for a couple of reasons. They had no evidence of first degree, of intention, of him planning it. They had nothing to prove that. And the other thing was he had got a really powerful lawyer at the time, someone that was a real powerhouse in Western Canada, who was doing it for really pro bono, typical. Typical defense attorney gets to do a lot of TV, and they do a lot of promotion, and they take these high cases, especially in the Canadian system, because in the Canadian system they're not allowed to advertise on TV. So a good way to get on TV every day is take a high profile case and talk about it to all the media.
That's unbelievable. It sounds like Harry Rankin out of Vancouver. Honestly, no,
it wasn't, but same idea.
Close
same
enough.
Idea.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Yes. Harry Rankin, for people who don't know in Vancouver, literally had hair like Albert Einstein at one point. It was awesome. He seemed to be on the news almost every night about something. But in regards to this guy almost rolling over to police, how did they finally get him to confess on what actually happened, or did he ever?
Well, he never did, because what they did was they took that evidence to the Crown. The Crown charged him with the 6 murders, and then the Crown they made a deal, typical, so they didn't even have a trial. They just read it and give him basically the sentence. In second-degree murder, it's life with no chance of parole between 15 and 25 years. Depends on the judge, right? So the judge has to decide. Now, the problem here is, so you're saying, well, he murdered 6 people, so why would he even be up for parole? Back in 82, the law was still reading that if you had killed 6 members as part of the same, event, the same crime.
It was listed as one.
It's listed as one. So you can get 6 life sentences, but they're not served one after another. They're served all at the same time. So therefore, you have 6 life sentences with a chance of parole, which the judge ended up giving him the max, which was 25 years. That means you just served 25 years, and you're up for parole. That's just how it is. So that's that has changed in Canada since then, but there's still a lot of the states that still do that same sort of judgment, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yes. I want to see in Canada one day where we get those, 300-year sentences, 1,286 years. And by the way, we're tacking on another because you beat up another crook and criminal in the prison system.
Well, and I think we have to look at this in a way of, you have someone that's committed something that's so atrocious and so vile that, should he get out? Should he ever be allowed out? If we're going to be in a country that we decide that we're not going to kill our criminals, okay, that's fine. So if we have to live with that fact that there's no death penalty, these people that do these awful things should never be out. They just they're in for life or they get a sentence. There should be none of this parole in 25 or 15 years. Someone that kills 6 people, rapes 2 people, tries to kill a cop twice and actually runs over another guy and kills him. Do you really want this person out? Do you really want him to be your neighbor?
No, and that's a very, very valid point. And the majority of society would 100% say no. But there are those who believe that rehabilitation does come into play, and I think that's a big one, and a big debate when it comes to cases like this. Eventually, it will come down to Robert Willie Pickton from the infamous pig farm murders. It will come down to everybody. I mean, imagine having 61 murders under your belt, maybe more, and you're serving 1 concurrent sentence.
Yeah. You see, that's wrong. Because, fair enough, rehabilitation for people that at least deserve it, at least have a certain amount of what they've done is a mistake or something that they had an issue with. This is far beyond that, in my opinion. This is way far. And the worst part, okay, now look at it this way as well. This man was convicted for 6 second-degree murders, okay? So he goes away. He does not have to take counseling for sexual abuse or assault. He gets out of prison. He is not a registered sex offender. He's never been convicted of rape, okay, or child molesting. So that you're talking about a man that could be living next door to you, and there's nothing about him that you'll know. He isn't a registered sex offender. No, he doesn't have to take counseling for this issue that he says he has. So there is no rehabilitation there. It's not a true rehabilitation.
No, very, very true. And how come that part was never brought forward?
Well, you see, what happened was, okay, so the Crown gets it. They're going to go, okay, he wanted to end it. We'll put him away for life with 25. It's done, and get the spectacle over with, and let Canada move on, and not hold on to this. So that was the idea of the Crown prosecutor. They had no evidence of the rape, but so after they had decided this was the sentence and they went ahead with it, Easton went back in and met with Shearing and asked him about what really happened, and after he had talked to his lawyer, he realized that nothing could happen to him. So then he told them, yeah, I wanted to have sex with the girls, and I knew the only way I could do it was to kill the 4 parents, 4 adults. So that's what I did. It was with other cops and with me later that he went into more detail. And for me, what's really disturbing is he has this idea almost like, especially with the 11-year-old, yeah, she didn't know what she was doing, so I just shot her in the head. So that attitude was almost like, yeah, I'm right. You know what I mean? It's almost like she didn't know how to drive, so I cut her off. It was almost like that. He said it with that kind of there was no emotion that you just shot an 11-year-old in the head. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like, oh yeah, I threw away that paper. It was no good. You know, he said it like that. So to me, that in itself means there's no real remorse there. That's not, he's not feeling sorry. He's not devastated what he had done. And that to me is enough to keep someone like that away.
In the next half hour, we're going to talk about his parole, because he is up for parole, and I think we can spend a lot of time on that. Getting back to the communities of West Bank, which, believe it or not, back in the 80s, it was the place to vacation. I mean, it had wild and wet water slides right beside old McDonald's farm, and I remember going there as a kid and be like, wow, this is just the greatest place ever. You know, I don't know if you did, Al, or not, but I know my family sure did. And I can say this, you know, that was a very tight-knit community back then. They were proud of their tourism. They were proud of where they were along Okanagan Lake. They weren't big bad Kelowna at that time. They were a very proud little suburb of a great Okanagan area. And then you look at Clearwater, which is literally, you know, stamped right in between I think 3 mountains. I mean, those are 2 communities that at a crime this heinous, you just don't heal over a year to 2 years or 10 years.
No, and it takes a long time. I think the first 10 years was probably the hardest, because nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew how to behave. Nobody knew how to react. You know, like everybody was shocked, scared, upset. You know, they had all of these emotions, and they didn't know how to deal with them. And there was no help for anybody in the town, like the kids or even the adults. So it was a real strange sensation. It was almost like it was a dream. You know, all of a sudden, everything changed. It's like one of those really bad horror movies. And everybody in the town was scared of everybody else initially. And then once they knew who did it, and then it was a fight to put them away. And it sort of shattered the town. It shattered their emotions. People didn't want to go camping. They didn't want to go skiing. Nobody would walk alone. It was like putting those little town people into the heart of a big city where lots of things are going on, and they didn't know really how to recover and protect themselves at the same time.
Literally, that old-fashioned statement of those type of things don't happen here was very true in both of these communities.
Yeah, it's like the old Mayberry, you know. People left their doors open. People came over and sat in other people's kitchens and drank coffee and walked back and forth, and there was no there wasn't like it is now so much. There was no boundaries in the sense of people were very much, it was communal, you know, it was more of a family. People walked to school together. People weren't scared to let their kids go out and play up and down and come back. And it was just a very freeing atmosphere. And that was taken away.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I did an interview last night with a gentleman for his own podcast, and we were talking about, you know, me growing up in Abbotsford, British Columbia, where they have a giant air show every year. And literally this air show will get like, you know, 125,000 people a year on a good year, if not more. And I remember I went to my first air show at 3 years old, and my best friend at the time was 5, and our dads would let us go right onto the tarmac to where all the airplanes were because they had the static display, and there was never any worry. You know, you're around a lot of military people. Nothing bad's going to happen. Today, I could never allow my 7-year-old son to just wander off like that to go look at a bunch of, you know, military aircraft. I'm like, are you nuts? Like, it just doesn't happen that way anymore.
Well, I think, like I said, we were kind of naive group. I think you and I were old enough to have seen the changes, lived through them, and it was just different. there was a total freedom that you had that society would never allow now. And I think that was kind of like the growing up, but for them it was instant. It happened like right now. So I think that was the difference. Some of us had natural time to gain the knowledge and to grow up and to learn these things. It happened overnight. It was just a smack right away.
True that. And you also brought up in a lot of communities this size, even where I am. I know people in my community that to this day do not lock their doors. They don't even know where their house keys are. When they go out for family vacation, they don't even bother locking the door.
Yeah.
And
which,
yeah, I mean, it sounds unbelievable. Crazy. It sounds crazy.
Well, no, it's crazy. But I think that's where they were. And like I said, it was just an instamatic. All of a sudden, you had to figure out how to protect yourself. It was a totally different feel. And you had a lot of people that didn't know how to do it. They'd never lived that way before. So now all of a sudden, we got to lock our doors. We got to put chains on the door. It was totally, it was like growing up overnight, really quick.
Yeah, it's terrible. We only got about 2.5 minutes here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Alan R. Warren is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. When the police finally got him out to confess to the murders on this, what kind of media attention did this receive across Canada?
Way too much. It was crazy. There were hundreds of people outside of the Kamloops courtroom, and the worst part of it too was as soon as it hit, they had to the family members, like a lot of the cousins and that I spoke to, the adults had to get them out of town. The media was camped outside of all their houses. So you think about this, some town of 1,500, and all of a sudden you've got 20 media vehicles outside of your house 24/7. You've got all of this stuff happening. They had to hide them all in places so that they weren't, hassled by the media. It was just it was a frenzy that
right.
I couldn't imagine.
And back then, the newspapers and the television stations and even the radio stations, they still told you the address of the victims.
That's right.
So
they told you everything.
Yeah, so for people who may not know or remember, if this crime had happened, it would be like, Dave Scott was arrested on, forging checks at the local casino, and Dave lives at 123 ABC Street in whatever town. I
exactly.
mean, that's the way they would do things, and they had no problem with putting the victims in there as well.
Yeah, and they would even print the phone numbers. And the worst part was, the Johnsons had lived in the house, and they had his parents living there, who they were helping live there because they were older. So when they all went away and never came back, other family members had to move in to take care of them. And at the same time, so you're moving into a house where this family's missing and all of their stuff is there. You know what I mean? Could you imagine that feeling?
Oh, I don't even want to.
Yeah,
don't even want to. It's scary enough, man. It's scary enough, and
yeah,
I couldn't imagine the emotion.
Yeah, too much, way too much. And then when they found out that they had been, murdered, then they had to go through all the stuff and get rid of it, or do something with everything. It just, meanwhile you've got the media trucks outside while you're doing this.
Mm-hmm. I
just
hear
crazy.
You. My friend, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we have Alan R. Warren on for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking about his latest book, Murder Times 6, the true story of the Wells Gray Park murders. You can get it at any major bookstore in North America as well as online. You know where to go. AlanRWarren.com is his website. We're going to talk about the parole coming up for David Shearing right after this on Spaced Out Radio. right, my friend, I'm going to quickly run my dogs out one more time. I'll be right back.
Sure thing.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, Space Travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Tribe and Tribe Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little different. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Tribe Charities, just go to tribecharities.org/donate.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Fall, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightline Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website, and let's figure out what's going on together.
All right, I'm back.
I'll be back.
No problem.
No, I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to sound like
back.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, I was trying to do it, but I'm not good at it. Let's see who's calling me names now.
Oh, where are they calling you names?
Oh, I don't know. I just pick a site and go to it. I get called all these things. Lefty. Work for the government, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice?
That's all right. That's all right.
I hate that shit.
I think it's, if in a way they're just really unhappy with their own lives,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. I mean, to start really getting that ugly, you're just really unhappy about something.
Yep. I know it all too well, my friend. All too well. You know, if I were, honestly, if I were to know that for me doing this show for almost free on a nightly basis, that I was going to take as much shit over the last few years as I have, I don't know if I would have signed up for it. I really don't. Like, somebody pointed out a video that to this day I don't know what I did to piss the person off. Don't know what I did. And I gave this person more airtime than a lot of people. And boom. All of a sudden, I'm the bad guy, and my show is all about the woo and doesn't talk anything serious about trying to solve these topics. I'm an entertainment show. You know, like, I don't know. Last time I checked, I'm an entertainment show. I don't get it.
It's your fault.
Yep. I'll get into that with the audience after the news, but anyways, we're on in 5 seconds. Hold on 1 second, my friend.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate the time. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. We also want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around the continent and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do we got here, Clam? Habromania. Habromania is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guest, Alan R. Warren. He is one of the top true crime researchers, authors. He's a best-selling author. You can find all of his books in any major bookstore, online, anywhere around the world because he is that darn good. He's got a nice face, too. He's a handsome guy. Could probably use a nice mustache, but, you know, we'll forgive him for that, for not having that. But his website, alanrwarren.com. I still think you should grow a mustache. That's just me. But
I don't know if I could do it.
I think you can.
No. I don't have hair.
I know. You still got a baby face. Hate that.
Yeah. That's the only thing I've got left.
Not me, man. Not me. I've already got my buddies, like my buddy Mark, who comes into the chat rooms all the time. He's like, yeah, you're looking more like Santa Claus every day with that beard. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Even my own mother said the other day to me, that beard makes you look like you're Santa Claus. No, Mom, I'm not. Thank you, Mom. Anyways, moving on here with this incredible story of your book, Murder Times 6, the true story of the Wells Gray Park murders. Now, the person who was convicted of this, a gentleman named David Shearing, who was convicted, I believe he was 24 years old. You know, that means he spent the last 38 years in prison. He would have come up for parole previously, would he not have?
Yeah, he actually came up for parole originally in 2008, and the hearing didn't go very well. And then again in 2012 and 2016 he withdrew, so it never happened. But the ones he came up for originally, he wasn't prepared, not at all. He wouldn't apologize for what he did. He wasn't sorry. He just wasn't there. He wasn't ready. But he's changed himself quite a bit now, and I believe it's to set himself up to get out.
Okay, so with that, especially for our American listeners who may not understand how the Canadian system works, how can he be up for parole so many times?
Well, it depends on how you behave in prison, first of all. And so he lived in prison a really good time. He never committed any infractions. He had a really good record. So therefore, he's well behaved. Parole was up for 25 years, so he started being brought forward to it. So, and it's usually about every 2 years, year and a half to 2 years. It depends.
So every 2 years, the taxpayer is on the hook for this.
Yeah, and now to explain too how it works is, so he's going to come up for a date on parole. So everybody that was involved in the murder, so all the family members, any victims that survived, parents, even friends and neighbors, all get a letter. And in the letter it says, okay, the parole's coming up this date, and they're invited to come watch, and they're also invited to submit any sort of impact statement that they'd like. And so a lot of them do. And I put an impact statement in there by someone that was in the school with the girls and how it's affected her life. And what I did was, when I first talked to her, she said how initially when she was sending them, they were being rejected by the parole board because they considered them too mean. I thought, wow, it must have been pretty harsh. And she said, no, it wasn't. And she gave me a copy, and that's what I put in there. So I wanted people to see what they considered to be too mean. It wasn't too mean. And the thing is, it's devastating to someone that's close to people that this has happened to. So it's going to be rather harsh. But the thing is, there was no swear words. There was no wishing he died. There was nothing violent. It was just about how much pain it caused and how it wrecked everything in the community and their lives, all this stuff. But the parole board seems to be very particular about what they let in and what they don't. So that's something you have to keep in mind. The other thing is when you go to the parole hearing, he sits with his new wife and whoever else he has, facing the 3-member parole board. The families and anybody to do with the victim side is up in an audience on the back side. So he doesn't even have to face them. He doesn't even have to listen. They don't get to read out their statements to him. They don't get to face him and say, this is what you did. That's not part of it. They're just an audience spectator. Those statements are just for the board themselves.
So for the statements, are the statements read out to the person? So, for instance, would they be read out to David Shearing, or are they just for the eyes of the parole board?
They're just for the parole board. If the parole members want to use them in their questioning and during their time, they're allowed to. But quite often they don't. It's not, or they might take one question out of it or one part of it that raises a thought in their mind. But it's really for the parole board. We have to also look at, this murder happened in 1982. A lot of the parole members were not even born, or they were just born when this happened. They're young people, and they have no awareness of this case, no personal awareness because they weren't alive. Do you know what I mean? That makes a huge difference. The other thing is, recently, he's changed his name. He's no longer David Shearing. He's now David Ennis. So the other thing he did was he had all of his criminal record expunged, from his record. So he doesn't have the manslaughter. He doesn't have the drug charges. He doesn't have the any assaults, theft, any of that stuff's on his record anymore. He just has this second-degree murder case times 6. Because it's considered one.
Is that because time has already passed? statute of limitations?
Yeah. If it's just you actually apply. So what he does is, after a certain amount of time, if you've served good time, or if you've been good in prison, or in public, however you're living, you can apply and say, I've committed no new crimes in 25 years, and have it expunged. It's just a little bit of money. So he's just done that, but it's purposely. He avoided the last parole hearing so that he could change his name. He could get rid of all of those bad charges. He could reinvent himself, so that when he's presented next year, he'll have a new name, a second-degree murder charge, and a great prison record. In fact, he's in a medium-mild security prison right now in Alberta, the Bonar Island one, which is between Calgary and Edmonton. It's like a high school, gardens, mattresses, internet, color TV.
Oh, nice life of luxury there.
Yeah, and get this. He gets 72 hours with his wife. They have these cabins on the prison property. They look like little cottages. She gets to come in and stay with him for 72 hours in this cottage. And they get to play house. They get to cook dinner, play cards, watch TV, have sex. They get to do all these things as if they were living in a little house. And the difference is they're of course they're guarded and they're locked in, right? So, but coming out of there, you almost realize that he's living better than a lot of people live in the outside.
Yeah, 3 squares, fresh toothbrushes, soap when you need.
Yeah, and now, and the worst part is, just before COVID, he applied to get those day passes. He was approved for day passes, I believe 6 of them per year. He gets a 4-hour pass to go visit his family, and it's unsupervised. Unsupervised. He's allowed to leave the prison, go to his wife, spend 4 hours with her, and then come back to prison. Unsupervised.
How is that even possible? I mean, I'm not going through the whole Constitution and the law, Canadian law, or anything like that, but this just seems so felonious on the government's part.
Well, it's even beyond the government. The way Parliament is set up is they're outside of the Corrections Canada. Corrections Canada has its own political system. So it's kind of its own entity. Not saying it should be, but it's sort of how it's set up. It was something that was set up long time ago. So, and I think as long as the numbers are good enough, Parliament doesn't get involved. So as long as things stay okay, they don't step in. The problem with these day passes is it's part of the Corrections Canada way of getting these criminals back into society, right? Because their mandate is to get you rehabilitated and a working, productive person back in society. That's their mindset. So what these passes do is they kind of show how you're going to be, and it's also a way of sort of getting you your feet wet, so to speak. You're just getting a little bit of coming back into society because it's changed a lot in 30 years, 40 years, right?
True.
So it's a slow way of bringing you in. Now, the only thing that stopped him from using any of these day passes is COVID. As soon as COVID hit, they shut the whole program down. So no day passes are allowed from prisoners until the COVID thing is over. But he's got approved for 6 of them.
Obviously, there's somebody on the parole board who feels that he has been rehabilitated. Have you talked to anybody regarding this?
Yeah, 2 different people. it's not so much that they think that. You see, because each time they have new members, I think it's just the mindset of when people are in the parole board, they're working to get you out, and that's how they're graded. It's almost like the idea that, like, police in the States are graded by your average, how many tickets you're giving if you're in the roads doing street traffic, how your conviction rate is, and capture rate. So we grade a lot of these people in these correction business jobs for their percentage numbers. And I think that's wrong, because over a period of time, you get people just looking to achieve certain numbers. So if you have, like, what I mean is, if you're going to meet 100 people in prison and you have to get 60 of them out, so 6 out of 10. So think about that. I'm going to introduce you to 100 people this year, and you're keeping the worst 40 in. That's how you'll start to think, right? So over a period of years, the mindset is no longer about individual, what this person could do. It shouldn't matter percentage. It shouldn't matter. You shouldn't be going, well, the best 60 get out. It should be, if these people are acceptable in society and rehabilitated, they get out. If that's 2 out of 100, it's 2. If it's 50, that's great. If it's 80, that's great. But they don't do that. It's about the overall percentage.
Do you believe that he will be eligible for parole?
Yes.
And when?
He's up for, his date was supposed to be June of 21. And being that he was already pre-approved for the 6-day pass unsupervised, he's on his way. He is on his way. That is the first step. If he behaves himself during these day passes after COVID, yeah, he'll get out. There's no reason not, absolutely nothing. Nothing you could do to keep him in unless he commits a crime. I mean, that's it. It's done. It's a done deal. The board is not going to approve you on unsupervised day passes unless they think, oh, yeah, he's going to be fine.
There's a lot of people right now who are sick to their stomach listening to this.
Oh, and it gets worse when you get into it, especially when you get into the and one of the things I was getting another group of emails from people saying, oh, no, they just say they're going to let you out, chance of parole. No, I put the numbers in the book just so people really understand the true facts. If you look at the percentages and the numbers of people that really get out, people that are convicted of life for some sort of a murder, the average person only spends 22 and a half years in prison in Canada, period. So a life sentence, you could really say, is 22 and a half years. So don't kid yourself into thinking that it doesn't happen. It happens. And the last numbers we have are from 2014 because they're slow with numbers. And it was almost a 30%. It was 28.2% of those people that were released that had committed major crimes like murder and rape and stuff, recommitted crimes in the same category. So it's not a great number. The States is very similar. Don't think it's much better down there. It's not. They're under the same sort of pressure. They're under a different type of pressure because they run their court or their jails like a business. So it's about profit and that. So they let a lot of prisoners out due to their finances. So you get a lot of people that were not so much murderers, but they let a lot of rapists and assaulters out much sooner than they should be because of their numbers. So they've got issues too.
In your opinion, if he does get out, is this the type of person who could potentially face some sort of vigilante retribution?
I would say so. After the last parole hearing that they did, they burned down his father's ranch, the house that he lived in. Somebody did. Yeah, I would say so. There's a lot of people, even family members I talk to, that wish they could get a gun in to the parole hearing and shoot him. They want him dead. They think he should be dead. And there's a lot of people that feel that way. There's still a lot of anger and rage, pain. Yeah. But at the same time, there's also a lot of people very scared. There were some of the neighbors that I talked to that are, they're only like 50 years old now. They're the kids living next door. And they live in different cities. They didn't want their name and where they lived put in the book. They had to make sure that was, because they're so scared of him with the day passes and the possibility of parole.
Even though he's in Alberta.
Doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it's almost like it happened yesterday. They may be 50 years old now, but it's like it just happened yesterday. They're still holding on to it. And every time he's done these things, like had things taken off his record and all these things, they get a letter telling them. He goes to the doctor, gets a tooth pulled, anything, they get notified. So it stays with them. It's not like they can move on.
My goodness. I guess we'll have to get an update from you next year on this.
Yeah, if anything good about COVID, this is one of them, because they're not going to be doing any of these hearings. Everything's on hold until it gets some sort of control over the COVID. So right now, that hearing is still there, but they haven't been doing them. So I think everything's on hold. So it might give us a little bit more time.
We've only got 2.5 minutes left with you tonight, and this show has been amazing, number one, but number two, it's flown on by, Alan, and I can never understand how when we have you on the air, how quickly these shows go. I mean, you're one of the best for a reason, my friend.
Oh, no, hardly. I'm just here doing what I can. I don't have a great self-esteem, so I focus on what I do, and I try to do it as best I can for the people involved. Because again, like I said, it's not my story, it's their story, it's their life, and they're putting themselves out there by allowing me to write their story. And I think that it comes with a lot of responsibility, and it comes with something that we all need to think about. It's very important that we start supporting each other as a community in a country, and be very positive toward each other and help each other. So it's a very important thing.
I get that. What are you working on next?
Well, as in new book that I'm putting out, the next one will be probably Killer Queen. Killer Queen is homosexual serial killers.
Oh, wow.
And I go back to the very first one that we know about in the 50s that was killing females in Los Angeles. And I even got some of the old records. This is a very interesting case because most people think of like Bruce MacArthur, or they think like of a man killing gay men in the community. But we're going into another territory. This is about gay killers that kill females.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Well, when do you plan on having that one out?
I'm hoping February, but you just never know with COVID. But because I've got a lot of stuff together, so once it feels comfortable, I'll put it together. So probably next year.
Yeah, I'll probably still be on chapter 8 of my book, Ben. I'm just saying.
Maybe chapter 9.
Maybe. Alan, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, and you're one of the few guests that we give an absolute open book to, that anytime you want to come on the air, you're more than welcome here, my friend.
Well, that's a nice thing to say, and thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Alan R. Warren, everybody, on Spaced Out Radio, his website, alanrwarren.com. You definitely want to add his books to your collection, including his latest, Murder Times 6, the true story of the Wells Gray Park murders. And, of course, all of his books can be found at any major bookstore around North America, and, of course, online, places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire. We have the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. More Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. amazing show, dude. Amazing show.
Wow, thank you for saying that. Glad you liked it.
Oh, well, I'm that guy. I know when there's a good show. I've done this enough. This was amazing. Amazing. Unbelievable.
Well, glad you're happy. Yeah, losing my voice.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I've got like a third cup of water here left, and I'm like, can I use that and sip on that to get through the news? Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy how that goes.
No kidding. No kidding. Anyways, my friend, I got to run here, get ready for the news, but much love to you and all your hard work, man. You deserve all the greatness that you get, my friend. We'll give you a few claps. Absolutely.
I got the clap.
Take a bow. Take a bow. All right, brother. You take care, okay? Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I love him. I absolutely love him. He is an amazing speaker. He is an amazing researcher. And that is a good show. That's as good as it gets when it comes to true crime, everyone. And that's why we have Alan on here quite a bit on this show. I mean, you guys heard it firsthand tonight. You heard it firsthand. Yeah. Unbelievable show. Unbelievable show. He's so good. So good. I cannot wait to read this. I don't read a lot of the books that I get, but this one is going to get read by me. That's not an insult to every other author who sends me books, but there's something good about this. Something good. I'm trying not to slouch. I've noticed that I've been slouching a lot lately, and my back is killing me. So I'm trying not to slouch. By the way, all of our shows brought to you by Mighty Moose Beard Oil. Make sure you order it up because Gary the Dutchman's Winter Blend is phenomenal. This one is, what is this one I got here? Let's see. Add 5-6 drops of beard oil in the palm of your hand for more bigger beards. Rub into hands and massage into beard. Enjoy. Ingredients: sweet almond and jojoba oil, whatever, combined with the perfect blend of cedarwood, black pepper, and grapefruit oils. All natural. All natural. Hey, redheaded Lisa. How you doing? Yeah, I'm trying not to slouch. Jojoba? Is that the pronunciation, pharmacy? No, but the winter blend smells really good. It smells really good. All right, everybody, we got 10 seconds. Thank you once again to Major Lee, Vinny, and BBD Warrior for the Super Chats tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up. Here we go with the news. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, too. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us in tonight. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, let's do this thing, shall we? The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the wild. Literally. Way up there in Alaska, in Yakutat. Captain Shirk didn't think I would pronounce that. She goes, "Do you know how to pronounce the word yak? Is it yake, Captain?" "Oh, by golly," she says. "Where's my glasses?" "No. It's Yakutat. An Alaskan Airlines jetliner struck down a brown bear while landing Saturday evening, killing the animal and causing damage to the plane. None of the passengers or crew on board the plane were injured during the incident in southeast Alaska. The Boeing 737-700 killed the brown bear sow, but a cub thought to be about 2 years old was uninjured. Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities spokesperson Sam Depkevich said airport crew members had cleared the runway about 10 minutes before the flight was expected to land. The plane landed after dark, and crews followed normal procedures with runway checks. The staff did not see signs of wildlife during the check, but the pilot spotted the two bears crossing the runway as the jet slowed down after landing. The nose gear nearly missed the bears, but the captain felt an impact on the left side after the bears passed under the plane. The pilot saw a bear lying about 20 feet from the center of the runway as the plane taxied to a parking area just before 6:30 p.m. It was not immediately clear how many passengers were on the flight. The plane departed from the town of Cordova and was scheduled to stop in Juneau after leaving Yakutat. See, Captain Shirk, I can say Yakutat. The left engine cowling of the jet was damaged, and the plane remained in Yakutat Sunday. Our maintenance technicians are working to repair the plane, which will take a couple of days, says Alaska Airlines. Of course, you hit a 2,000-pound bear with your jet. The airport, by the way, is partially enclosed by a fence. Employees undergo annual wildlife hazard training, as well as use pyrotechnics or vehicles to herd animals away. Planes previously have been reported to hit deer, geese, caribou, and other animals in Alaska. No Sasquatch, no Dogman, though. But Depkevich said that this is the first time he was aware of a bear being struck. Crew members at the Yakutat airport cleared the bear carcass from the runway. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game was expected to collect the remains. Scary. Scary. What the hell was that bear thinking? Did it not recognize the noise? Bears are usually quite skittish around that kind of stuff. I don't get it. Speaking of Bigfoot, a wooden statue of a Bigfoot was recovered by police after being seen alongside a road north of Santa Cruz, California. Thieves grabbed the 4-foot-tall wood carving from the Bigfoot Discovery Museum near Henry Cowell Redwood State Park and relocated it. Maybe it wasn't human thieves at all. Bigfoot, the real one, may have moved it to prank the locals himself or herself. Yeah. In the event that you need a little Sasquatch video action, You can always go to YouTube to find a bunch of fake ones out there. But, I mean, this is actually kind of cool. I bet you this happens again. I really do. Because normally, when it happens once, now it becomes a prank. Now everybody's going to be stealing that Bigfoot and leaving it around town. And there's going to be a legend made of this. This is fantastic. It really should. I mean, it sucks for the Bigfoot Discovery Museum, but as long as the Bigfoot stays intact and people don't break it, I say move it around. Move it around. Have some fun with it. It's kind of like, when you see those people, and I don't promote this, okay? But when you see those people stealing garden gnomes from people's gardens, and then they take them on a trip, and then they return the garden gnome, I don't know why. I would love for that to happen to me. But then again, I don't have any garden gnomes in my garden. They're all securely placed right here at SOR headquarters, so that way they don't get away, and that way I have full control on whether or not they move. But if you're going to pull a prank like that, just make sure you return it in one piece, because you are stealing private property, and, we don't really condone that around here. No, we don't. It's funny, but we don't condone it. Okay, moving on. A hiker who was rescued after being lost overnight in a whiteout in Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State has been brought back to life after what his medical team is calling an amazing recovery. 45-year-old Michael Napinski of Woodinville died in the emergency room at Harborview Medical Center after being airlifted off the mountain last Sunday. He had a pulse when he arrived at the hospital, but soon his heart stopped, said Dr. Janelle Badulak, one of the first people to start treating him. He died while he was in the ER, which gave us the unique opportunity to try and save his life by basically bypassing his heart and lungs, which is the most advanced form of artificial life support that we have in the world. The medical team repeatedly performed CPR and hooked him up to an extracorporeal membrane oxygenation machine. I'm never saying that again. An ECMO machine, which pumped blood in and out of his body into a heart-lung machine that removes carbon dioxide and then puts it back in the body. His heart remained stopped for 45 minutes. I wonder where he went. That's what I want to know. Where did he go? After the doctors restarted it, the medical team spent the night beside him to make sure he would continue to stabilize. 2 days later, Napinski woke up. Trauma nurse Whitney Holan was there and said the first thing he really wanted to do was call his family. He was crying, and they were crying, and I'm fairly sure I cried a little bit. Holan said, well, why wouldn't you? This is an awesome, awesome story. It was just really special to see someone that we had worked so hard on from start to finish to then wake up that dramatically and that impressively. Good for them. She added, it reminded me of this is why we do this. This is why we are doing the long hours. This is why we're away from our families. This is why we're here. I'll add something to her statement. This is why, lady, you are a hero, along with all your other medical technicians and doctors. He continued to have some trouble with his heart, kidneys, and frostbite, but doctors said they believe he'll be okay. He still remains in hospital. Good for him. Good for him. And they are heroes. Doctors, nurses, heroes. A British boatsman has recounted a terrifying ordeal. You know what? Before I even start this is why you don't go in the ocean, people. It's not just sharks anymore. We now have pissed off killer whales. The orcas are starting to gather, and they're angry. They are angry. So hear this story, this terrifying ordeal, during which a pod of 6 or 7 orcas, commonly known as killer whales, rammed a 45-foot-long boat. The strange encounter, which lasted 2 hours, occurred about 20 miles off the coast of Portugal in October. The yachtsman, David Smith, was on a job at the time transporting a boat from France to Gibraltar. I don't frighten easily, and this was terrifying, Smith said of the incident. Initially, Smith and his crew thought the approaching animals were dolphins, but it quickly became apparent that this was a pod of killer whales, and they were acting strangely. The orcas began to ram the underside of the boat and continued for around 2 hours. These killer whales somewhere in the ocean were watching a movie of Moby Dick, and they got brave. They got real brave. Anyways, it was continuous, he said. I think there were 6 or 7 animals, but it seemed like the juvenile ones, The smaller ones were more active. They seemed to be going for the rudder. The wheel would just start spinning really fast every time there was an impact. Using a satellite phone, the crew alerted the Portuguese Coast Guard of the situation, who advised the crew to turn off their motor and take down the sail in order to be as uninteresting as possible. So, Smith says, then we were just there, adrift. But while I was on the phone, I could hear one of them ramming the boat again. At one point, one of the larger animals came right to the stern and flipped onto its back. You could see the bright white underside. The boatsman's greatest concern at the time was that the orcas could dislodge a part of the boat known as the rudder stock. If that fractures, you're really in trouble, said Smith. I was definitely preparing to ask the Portuguese Coast Guard to send a helicopter to get us off. Eventually, after a period of around 2 hours, the orcas just left unexpectedly. They came to us, not the other way around. This incident is one of at least 40 similar mysterious encounters between killer whales and boats that have been reported off the coasts of Portugal and Spain in the last 6 months. I'm telling you, they saw Moby Dick. Marine scientists are still trying to unravel what may be causing the orcas to consistently target boats in such a way, a behavior that has only been reported a handful of times before this recent spate of encounters. Scientists believe that 3 young orcas, known collectively as the Gladyses, maybe they should be renamed the Karens, may be involved in many of the recent incidents. Orcas are highly complex, intelligent, and social animals, so they try to understand their behavior. It's a difficult task for scientists. Some have speculated that the ramming of the boats may be a form of play rather than deliberate attempts to harm people or damage boats. Either way, they have big teeth. They can kill you. And another reason not to go in the ocean. Santa Claus is coming to local malls all around the world here very, very soon. However, in New York, you're not going to be sitting on Santa's lap. No, despite the pandemic and the fact that Santa's age and weight put him at high risk for severe illness from coronavirus, mall owners are going ahead with plans to bring him back this year, as they should. But they are doing all they can to keep the jolly old man safe, including banning kids from sitting on his knee, no matter if they've been naughty or nice. Kids will instead tell Santa what they want for Christmas from 6 feet away and sometimes from behind a sheet of plexiglass. Santa and his visitors may need to wear a face mask, even while posing for photos. And some malls will put faux gift boxes and other decorations in front of St. Nick to block kids from charging towards him. Other safety measures include online reservations to cut down on lines, workers wiping down holiday decoration sets, and hand sanitizer aplenty. Santa's hours are also going to get cut back to give him a break from the crowds. Macy's canceled its in-person visits this year, saying it couldn't provide a safe environment for the more than 250,000 people that show up to see Kris Kringle in its New York flagship store. But malls, which have struggled to attract shoppers for years, are not willing to kill a holiday tradition that is one of their biggest ways to lure people during the all-important holiday shopping season. You have to give them a reason to come or they'll stay home and shop online, says Michael Brown, who oversees the retail team at consulting firm Kearney. More than 10 million U.S. households visited Santa in a mall or store last year. According to Global Data Retail's managing director Neil Saunders, nearly 73% of them also spent money at nearby restaurants or stores. Santa is the magnet that attracts people to malls, and without that attraction, malls will struggle even more to generate foot traffic. You want to see struggling for foot traffic? Come to the mall in my town. It has a bank, an insurance office, a doctor's office, a dental office, a food store, and a drugstore. That's it. That's your mall. Can't even fit a Santa chair in the mall. The hallways are too thin. It's old school, man. It is old school. But Santa this year, I'm a big Santa guy. I believe in the guy. So just make sure that you don't go kill him off with COVID. That's all I'm asking. Wash your kids. Oh, the Edmonton Oilers. My proud hockey team that I cheer for, besides the Canucks. Well, my Oilers are now being sued by a Dallas, Texas hotel over an alleged bounce check and a hotel stay. Yeah. According to reports, the Oilers allegedly bounced a $28,000 check following a stay at a Dallas hotel in December. The report also says the Oilers owe another $27,000 for a stay in March. The Oilers played against the Dallas Stars in Dallas on December 16, 2019, a game that we won 2-1 before traveling to St. Louis for a game there on the 18th. Edmonton also played in Dallas March 3rd with another 2-1 win. That's because we were on a roll to the playoffs. We were winning. Oilers Senior Vice President Tim Shipton provided a statement to Westhead saying, "We have the same challenges as every business navigating through the global pandemic. We are working diligently through our business operations and attending to outstanding issues from the unexpected stoppage of last season." Your owner is a billionaire. Let Daryl Cates write the check. Come on, Daryl. You're in the medical field. You own a bunch of pharmacies. Cut the check. You'll probably spend $27,000 on your son's hairdo just for Christmas alone. His son has a giant perm. It's amazing. Fantastic hair. A champion racing pigeon sold by a Belgian trainer broke a world record and became the most expensive pigeon ever when it was sold for nearly $1.9 million. New Kim, a 2-year-old bird put up for sale on the Pippa auction website by retired trainer Gaston Van de Weyer, who's 76 years old, fetched a top bid of $1,894,672 at the closing of the auction. The website said the pigeon was purchased by a Chinese buyer using the pseudonym Super Duper. Nice and original there. The buyer's real name was not revealed, but Pippa said it was the same man who previously set the world record in March of 2019 when he paid $1.4 million for a champion racing pigeon named Armando. Finally tonight, this is scary. Eerie. But we're going to tell you anyways. How would you like to be doing a little gardening or yard cleanup for the winter and find a bomb in your backyard? Seriously. And not just any bomb, like a World War II type bomb that could literally go off. Sometimes they're dummies, sometimes they're fake, sometimes they're kids' toys. Either way, it's scary stuff. Well, authorities in Massachusetts were summoned to the home of a man who made an unusual discovery while doing yard work. It was an apparent mortar round. The Westboro Police Department said officers responded alongside personnel from the Westboro Fire Department when a resident doing work in his backyard called 911. The resident told authorities he was working in his backyard when he dug up the object that really resembled a bomb. The Massachusetts State Police Bomb Squad was summoned to the man's home and transported the device to a safe location where it was detonated. The origins of the device and how it became buried in the man's yard is still unknown. That is creepy stuff. Creepy stuff. I don't get it. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. Let's have some fun, because I knew this book with Alan was going to be a little bit morbid, so I figured we'd have some fun. Describe to me your worst first date experience. Reverend Keith getting into the action, right? Well, I meet this girl in a bar in Soho. We were drinking champagne like it was soda. She asked me to dance. Man, that girl could hug. Nearly broke my spine. So she invited me to her house. Let's say the rest of the night did not go as expected. Reverend Keith apparently had a date with Lola. Lola. L-O-A? L-O-L-A? Lola. That's awesome, Reverend Keith. Thank you for your humor. Alex, let's just say when a girl asks, what do you do? And you answer with Bigfoot, zombies, and living dinosaurs, thinking you are escalating the sexual tension. You are not. As it turns out, it's not a turn-on. Who knew? Gary, first kiss and banging our teeth together after holding each other for half an hour. Then I said, I got to go do my paper round. That is awesome. Krista, ooh, I have several. Sitting in a busy restaurant, and my buddy leans over to me to show a video of his new puppy. But he accidentally clicks a sex tape of him and someone else right as the waiter comes up, volume in full as she starts moaning. Oh, my goodness. Kimberly, I remember one guy who took me out for dinner, and I wore a brand new outfit. The restaurant had bamboo chairs, and my sweater got caught on the chair as we were getting up to leave. And while the date went well, he used that situation as his excuse for never seeing me again, the imbecile. Other than that, many first dates have turned into relationships. The dates were great. The relationships, not so much. And finally, James. Oh, God, I'm trying to forget this one, but here it goes. Got fixed up by my brother and his wife with their longtime friend from high school. Went to a bar and were drinking too much, but we were making out a lot, so not paying attention to the band or anyone or even the time. Had to leave after midnight because I was scheduled to be on a plane for South Korea, DMZ, in the Army at 7 a.m. Nothing good happens after that. Did not get to sleep until almost 2. Tired and drunk. No making sweet love. Had to go to Syracuse, then St. Louis, then Seattle, then Tokyo, then Seoul. Slept on the planes, got real sick and sleepy as hell when I got to South Korea. Found out I got mononucleosis, but bedridden for a week. Zero energy, no meals except for water and bread. The Army didn't like that at all. Oh, sorry, James. Thank you to everybody on the Thought of the Day. We'll do it all again on Facebook and Twitter tomorrow. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the news and Alan R. Warren for a great night of true crime. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody in our chat room, Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Rev Radio, the Space Travelers Club, and our website, Facebook, and the Snarkers at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.